July 8, 2013. A warm summer evening in Roswell, New Mexico. The kind where fireflies dance across front yards and children beg for just 5 more minutes before bedtime. For the Thompson family, it was supposed to be nothing more than their annual summer barbecue at their ranch home on the outskirts of town. James and Margaret Thompson, both respected high school teachers, had invited neighbors and colleagues to celebrate their daughter Abigail's 12th birthday. Abigail Thompson, bright-eyed with chestnut hair typically worn in a messy ponytail, was known around Roswell Middle School for her exceptional scientific curiosity and her collection of astronomy books. Her science teacher described her as the kind of student who asked questions that made you go home and research the answers. That evening, wearing her favorite NASA t-shirt, a gift from her uncle who worked at the Very Large Array Observatory, Abigail was last seen heading toward the family's backyard observatory, a small shed that James had converted for his amateur astronomy hobby. At 9:43 p.m., Margaret called for Abigail to come have cake. When she didn't respond, James went to check the observatory. The door was ajar, Abigail's notebook open on the desk, a half-finished sentence about unusual atmospheric disturbances scrawled in her meticulous handwriting. Her telescope was still aimed at the sky, warm to the touch, but Abigail was gone. What began as confused calls throughout the property quickly escalated to frantic searches with flashlights, then to neighbors combing the desert terrain. By midnight, Chavez County Sheriff's Department had been called. By dawn, a full search party had assembled, including volunteers from as far as Albuquerque. What nobody mentioned in the initial reports, but what 3 separate guests would later tell investigators, was the strange, pulsing blue light they had observed in the sky above the Thompson property, roughly 10 minutes before Abigail was discovered missing. One witness, Dr. Eleanor Reeves, a physics professor at Eastern New Mexico University, would later describe it as, "Unlike any aircraft or natural phenomenon I've ever observed." The search for Abigail Thompson would become one of New Mexico's most baffling missing persons cases. But what investigators would discover a decade later would challenge everything we thought we knew about that night, and about what might exist in the skies above us. The first 48 hours following Abigail's disappearance unfolded with methodical urgency. Sheriff Daniel Martinez, a 28-year veteran of law enforcement, coordinated search efforts that covered over 30 square miles of the harsh New Mexico terrain. Thermal imaging drones, cadaver dogs, and horseback teams combed through every arroyo and mesa surrounding the Thompson property. The FBI field office from Albuquerque dispatched Special Agent Carmen Vasquez, a specialist in child abduction cases, who established a command center in the Roswell police station. "We treat every missing child case as if time is running out," Agent Vasquez told reporters during a press conference on July 10th. But this case presented immediate complications. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, and multiple witnesses who confirmed seeing Abigail mere moments before she vanished. The Thompson home yielded few clues. Forensic teams found Abigail's fingerprints on her telescope and notebook, exactly as expected. Her phone was found charging in her bedroom. The family computer showed that earlier that day, Abigail had been researching anomalous atmospheric phenomena and unexplained lights over New Mexico. This initially led investigators to consider whether she had planned to run away to investigate something she had seen, but her passport remained in the family safe, and her savings account, containing $237 from birthday money and allowance, remained untouched. Margaret Thompson, hollow-eyed and barely holding herself together, appeared on local television. "Abby wouldn't run away, not on her birthday, not without telling us. Something happened to my baby." James stood beside her, unable to speak, clutching his daughter's astronomy notebook like a lifeline. By the end of the first week, investigators had interviewed 47 individuals who attended the barbecue. 3 separate witnesses, Dr. Reeves, James's colleague Robert Hernandez, and next-door neighbor Elaine Williams, all described seeing unusual lights in the sky around 9:30 p.m. However, Sheriff Martinez publicly dismissed these accounts. In times of stress and uncertainty, people often recall details influenced by our town's unique history, he told the Roswell Daily Record, referencing the infamous 1947 incident. "We're focusing on credible leads, not distractions." What the sheriff didn't disclose was that the observatory shed contained a handheld EMF detector that showed readings had spiked dramatically around the estimated time of Abigail's disappearance, a detail that would remain classified in the case file for years. As weeks turned into months, the search for Abigail Thompson transformed from an active rescue mission to a persistent investigation. The case had captured national attention, with major networks featuring segments on the baffling circumstances. America's Most Wanted dedicated a full episode to the disappearance, generating over 200 tips, all of which led nowhere. The Thompson family home became a shrine of sorts. Margaret refused to change Abigail's room, leaving her star map posters on the walls and her half-finished science fair project on the desk. James took an indefinite leave of absence from teaching physics, instead spending his days updating a website dedicated to finding his daughter, meticulously documenting every reported sighting and theory. By October 2013, the prevailing theory among law enforcement shifted toward abduction, possibly by someone who had attended the barbecue. The guest list was scrutinized again, backgrounds were checked, alibis verified. Jason Wilson, a maintenance worker at Roswell Middle School who had briefly conversed with Abigail at the party, was brought in for questioning 3 times but ultimately cleared when gas station footage confirmed he was in Carlsbad, 75 miles away, when Abigail vanished. Meanwhile, a quieter investigation was taking shape. Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the physics professor who had reported the strange lights, began collaborating with Robert Hernandez and 3 other scientists from the Very Large Array. They collected and analyzed weather data, flight patterns, and astronomical events from that evening. What we found defies conventional explanation, Dr. Reeves noted in a private research document. The electromagnetic anomalies recorded that night match only a handful of similar incidents worldwide, most notably the 1980 Rendlesham Forest incident in England and a classified event near Nellis Air Force Base in 1994. Their findings, a 16-page analysis complete with spectral analysis of the reported lights, was submitted to both the FBI and the Sheriff's Department in December 2013. It was promptly filed away, unacknowledged. What investigators couldn't ignore, however, were the bizarre equipment malfunctions that had occurred during the search. 6 separate radios had failed simultaneously during the initial search operation. 3 phones belonging to guests had been completely wiped of data after the party. And most disturbing of all, the surveillance camera at the end of the Thompsons' driveway, installed months before the party for security, contained 11 minutes of static precisely during the time frame when Abigail disappeared. The Thompsons, desperate for answers, hired private investigator Mike Callahan, a retired Air Force security specialist who had previously worked at Area 51 in Nevada. His involvement would uncover the first truly inexplicable piece of evidence. The investigation took an unexpected turn in March 2014 when Mike Callahan made a discovery that would alter the course of the case. While re-examining the ground around the observatory shed, he found a small metallic object buried about 2 inches in the soil. Roughly the size and shape of a guitar pick, the object defied conventional analysis. Made from an alloy that metallurgists at New Mexico Tech could not immediately identify, it exhibited unusual properties. It maintained a constant temperature of 72 degrees, regardless of environmental conditions, and caused compass needles to spin erratically when brought within 6 inches. I've encountered materials from experimental aircraft during my time in the Air Force, Callahan explained in his report to the Thompson family, but nothing that matches this profile. The FBI reluctantly took possession of the object, but the Thompsons never received any official analysis results. Through unofficial channels, Callahan learned that the object had been transferred to a specialized materials research facility in Virginia, associated with the Department of Defense. Wow, this case is getting intense, isn't it? Before we dive deeper into what happened with this mysterious metallic object, if you're enjoying this unexplained disappearance, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss our upcoming investigations into similar cases where conventional explanations fall short. Hit that subscribe button now. The truth is waiting to be discovered. Meanwhile, the Thompson family's life had been irreparably altered. Margaret began experiencing vivid dreams where she saw Abigail surrounded by blue light, trying to communicate through a glass-like barrier. Initially dismissing these as manifestations of grief, she became alarmed when James independently described having nearly identical dreams. "We never discussed the details with each other," Margaret told Callahan, "but when we finally compared notes, the similarities were undeniable. We both saw her in the same setting, wearing the same clothes, not her birthday outfit, but something white and simple, and she was trying to show us something written in a strange script. Intriguingly, Dr. Reeves had been collecting reports from Roswell residents who claimed to have experienced unusual dreams following Abigail's disappearance. 7 unconnected individuals described dreaming of a young girl trying to communicate through symbols. When shown photos of several missing children, all 7 identified Abigail. Sheriff Martinez remained skeptical, suggesting mass hysteria fueled by Roswell's UFO-obsessed culture, but even he couldn't explain why the search dogs had all refused to approach the observatory shed, whining and backing away as if encountering an invisible barrier. The case grew even more complex when Robert Hernandez, who had been assisting Dr. Reeves with her research, reported that his home office had been broken into. Nothing of value was taken, but his research notes on the electromagnetic anomalies from the night of Abigail's disappearance were missing. 3 days later, he received an anonymous phone call. "Stop looking up. Some questions shouldn't be answered." By 2015, the investigation had reached a frustrating stalemate. The FBI officially classified Abigail's case as a possible abduction, but admitted they had exhausted all conventional leads. Sheriff Martinez retired, and the new sheriff, Lisa Contreras, reopened the case file with fresh eyes. Sheriff Contreras was less dismissive of the unconventional aspects of the case. A former military police officer who had served at White Sands Missile Range, she understood that the government sometimes classified incidents that defied explanation. Her first act was to interview Dr. Reeves and review the scientific analysis that had previously been ignored. "I don't know what happened to Abigail Thompson," Contreras stated in a private memo to her investigative team, "but I know we're missing something important by dismissing witness testimony about the lights. Multiple credible witnesses, including a physics professor, described the same phenomenon independently. That deserves serious consideration." This renewed approach yielded unexpected connections. Sheriff Contreras discovered that in the weeks preceding Abigail's disappearance, 3 separate 911 calls had reported unusual aerial lights near the Very Large Array, about 100 miles west of Roswell. More significantly, 2 hikers in the area had experienced inexplicable missing time, setting out for a 2-hour hike at 10 a.m., but returning to their vehicle at sunset with no memory of the intervening hours. The hikers, Dana Morrison and Paul Blackwood, both graduate students in astronomy at New Mexico State University, had sought hypnotherapy to recover their memories. The sessions revealed fragmentary recollections of being in a white room with tall figures and seeing a young girl with a notebook. When shown photographs of missing persons from the region, both independently identified Abigail Thompson as the girl they had glimpsed. Their therapist, Dr. Howard Jenkins, had worked with numerous individuals claiming abduction experiences, but considered Morrison and Blackwood's case uniquely compelling due to their scientific backgrounds and their lack of previous interest in UFO phenomena. "These aren't people seeking attention or explanation for psychological issues," Dr. Jenkins noted. "They came to me reluctantly, embarrassed by their experience, but desperate to understand what happened during those missing hours." Concurrent with these developments, Mike Callahan pursued another angle. Using his military contacts, he learned that a classified remote viewing program, a controversial psychic technique allegedly used by intelligence agencies, had been briefly reactivated to locate high-priority missing persons. A heavily redacted document he obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request indicated that Abigail's case had been included in this program. The document contained a curious phrase: "Subject appears to be in a state of temporal displacement. Location inconclusive, but consistent reference to between spaces reported by 3 separate viewers." What made this truly remarkable was that the Thompson parents had independently used the exact phrase "between spaces" to describe where they sensed their daughter was in their recurring dreams. Meanwhile, the metallic object found near the observatory remained unaccounted for in official records. Through an anonymous source at the Department of Defense, Callahan received a single message: "Isotopic composition inconsistent with terrestrial origin. Project Vanish has assumed jurisdiction." No record of any Project Vanish existed in unclassified government documentation. The case took a dramatic turn in 2018 when James Thompson, who had never stopped his personal investigation, received an anonymous package. Inside was a USB drive containing what appeared to be classified documents from a facility called Midnight Museum, located somewhere in Nevada. The documents detailed a program studying temporally displaced individuals and contained a list of names. including Abigail Thompson's. Beside her name was a cryptic notation: potential bridge subject, dimensional resonance signature stable. James immediately contacted Mike Callahan and Sheriff Contreras. Authentication of the documents proved challenging, but certain details aligned with information only someone with high-level clearance would know. Most compelling was a reference to the exact alloy composition of the metallic object found near the observatory, information that had never been publicly released. While authorities debated the document's legitimacy, Dr. Reeves made another breakthrough. Working with quantum physicists from Los Alamos National Laboratory, she had been analyzing atmospheric data from July 8, 2013, and discovered something extraordinary: a brief gravitational anomaly, lasting approximately 72 seconds, had been recorded by sensitive equipment at observatories across the Southwest, precisely when Abigail disappeared. The data suggests a localized distortion in space-time, Dr. Reeves explained in a paper submitted to a prestigious physics journal, which was promptly declined for publication. While current theoretical models don't allow for such phenomena at the macroscopic level, the evidence indicates some form of temporospatial displacement occurred. In layman's terms, she was suggesting that the laws of physics, as we understand them, had been briefly suspended or altered above the Thompson property. Meanwhile, a former Air Force security officer stationed at nearby Walker Air Force Base came forward with startling testimony. Staff Sergeant Thomas Webb claimed that on the night of Abigail's disappearance, radar operators had tracked an unidentified aerial phenomenon that exhibited impossible flight characteristics: instantaneous acceleration, right-angled turns at extreme velocity, and the ability to seemingly blink in and out of radar detection. "We were ordered to log it as a radar malfunction," Webb testified in a sworn affidavit. "But I've been working with these systems for 14 years. It wasn't a glitch, and it wasn't any aircraft in our current inventory or anyone else's." The corroboration came from an unexpected source: a commercial airline pilot who had been flying from Dallas to Phoenix that night. Captain Sofia Rodriguez reported that her aircraft's electrical systems had experienced a momentary failure while passing near Roswell, an event serious enough to be logged but brief enough not to endanger the flight. The timestamp of this incident matched exactly with the gravitational anomaly Dr. Reeves had identified. Perhaps most disturbing was the revelation that similar disappearances, all involving scientifically gifted children between the ages of 10 and 14, had occurred in a rough geometric pattern across the southwestern United States over the past 30 years. In each case, unusual atmospheric phenomena had been reported, and in each case, the investigations had eventually stalled. The Thompson family, while grateful for the renewed attention to Abigail's case, struggled with the implications of these discoveries. "I just want to know if my daughter is alive," Margaret told Sheriff Contreras. "All this talk about anomalies and classified projects, does it bring us any closer to finding her?" The answer would come from an entirely unexpected source. In early 2020, as the world grappled with the emerging pandemic, the Thompson case resurfaced in an unforeseen manner. During a routine inventory of evidence at the Roswell Sheriff's Department, a young deputy discovered that Abigail's notebook, supposedly secured in evidence, contained 12 pages of additional writing that hadn't been present during the initial investigation. The handwriting matched Abigail's, but the content was bizarre: complex mathematical equations interspersed with unfamiliar symbols and repeated phrases like dimensional convergence points and return window calculations. Forensic analysis confirmed the ink matched the original entries, showing no signs of aging difference despite appearing years after the notebook was sealed in evidence. More inexplicably, some of the equations referenced quantum computing principles that hadn't been developed until 2017, 4 years after Abigail's disappearance. Dr. Reeves and a team of specialists from multiple scientific disciplines examined the notebook. These equations described theoretical methods for creating localized Einstein-Rosen bridges. Essentially, wormholes, Dr. Reeves explained. What's most astonishing is that they incorporate solutions to problems that our best physicists are still struggling with. Either this is an elaborate hoax requiring genius-level knowledge across multiple cutting-edge fields, or she didn't complete the sentence. She didn't need to. Meanwhile, James Thompson had been meticulously tracking unusual aerial phenomena reported around Roswell since his daughter's disappearance. He noticed a pattern. Every year, during the first week of July, reports of strange lights increased significantly, With the help of amateur astronomy groups, he organized a coordinated skywatching effort for July 2020, positioning observers with high-definition cameras at strategic locations surrounding the original disappearance site. Their vigilance was rewarded on July 8th, exactly 7 years after Abigail vanished, when multiple observers recorded a blue-white light performing impossible maneuvers over the Thompson property. Unlike previous sightings, this time they captured clear, steady footage from multiple angles. Analysis of the video revealed several anomalies. The light didn't behave like any known aircraft, drone, or natural phenomenon. It emitted no sound, left no contrail, and moved with deliberate precision. Most strikingly, infrared cameras showed that the surrounding air temperature dropped by nearly 20 degrees Fahrenheit whenever the light paused, an energy signature that defied conventional physics. But the truly extraordinary discovery came when they enhanced the audio from the videos. Buried beneath the ambient desert sounds was a pattern of pulses that, when isolated and decoded by audio specialists, revealed a series of prime numbers, a sequence long theorized as a potential universal language for extraterrestrial communication. More personally devastating for the Thompsons, when the sequence was completely decoded, it contained a message in simple ASCII code spelling out, "Abby alive, waiting time different here." The revelation sent shockwaves through both the scientific community and law enforcement. The FBI reassigned Special Agent Vasquez to reopen the case officially, this time with the support of specialists from NASA and the Department of Energy. The government's official position remained skeptical, attributing the message to a sophisticated hoax, but their actions suggested otherwise. Satellite time was quietly redirected to monitor the Thompson property, and specialized equipment was installed at nearby White Sands Missile Range to detect further anomalies. For Margaret and James Thompson, the message brought both comfort and renewed anguish. "We've believed she was alive somewhere all this time," Margaret told a local reporter. "But what does it mean that time is different? Has it only been days for her while we've suffered through years? Is she aging? Is she still the 12-year-old girl who went missing? Or has she grown up somewhere else?" These questions haunted the investigation as it entered its most intensive phase yet. As July 2023 approached, marking a decade since Abigail's disappearance, activity around the case intensified. The annual light phenomena had continued each year, becoming more prolonged and complex with each appearance. Analysis of the cumulative footage revealed what appeared to be an intentional pattern. The light was appearing in different positions that, when mapped over time, formed what mathematicians identified as a Fibonacci spiral centered on the Thompson Observatory. Dr. Reeves, now leading a semi-official research team with tacit government approval, theorized that the pattern represented coordinates in four-dimensional space, 3 physical dimensions plus time. What we're witnessing may be attempts at communication from a perspective that experiences time differently than we do, she explained to a select committee of scientists and officials. The team installed advanced monitoring equipment around the Thompson property, including quantum field detectors originally designed for dark matter research. As July 8, 2023 approached, the instruments detected increasing distortions in the local electromagnetic field, subtle at first, but growing stronger as the anniversary neared. 3 days before the anniversary, James Thompson made a fateful decision. Against the advice of authorities, he announced his intention to be in the observatory shed at exactly 9:43 p.m. on July 8th, the precise time Abigail had vanished a decade earlier. "If whatever took my daughter returns, it can take me too. At least then I might find her," he told Mike Callahan, who had remained deeply involved in the case. Officials attempted to secure the property, citing safety concerns, but public sympathy for the Thompson family had grown so strong that there was significant pushback. A compromise was reached. James would be allowed in the observatory but surrounded by scientific equipment and with trained personnel nearby. The event would not be publicly announced to prevent a media circus, though rumors spread through UFO research communities. On the night of July 8, 2023, James entered the observatory at 9:30 p.m. He brought only one item, Abigail's dog-eared copy of A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, her favorite book. Dr. Reeves monitored equipment from a command center established in the Thompson home, while Sheriff Contreras maintained security with a small team of deputies. At 9:41 p.m., instruments detected the now familiar electromagnetic distortions beginning to form. At 9:42, Compass needles around the property began spinning wildly. Security cameras showed James sitting calmly at Abigail's desk, opening the book to a page she had bookmarked, a chapter on wormholes and Einstein-Rosen bridges. At exactly 9:43 p.m., witnesses reported a column of blue-white light descending directly onto the observatory. Every electronic device within a half-mile radius temporarily failed. Cameras, phones, even the specialized scientific equipment. For precisely 72 seconds, the same duration as the gravitational anomaly measured on the night of Abigail's disappearance, the observatory was engulfed in light so intense that it was visible from Roswell, 20 miles away. When the light vanished and equipment came back online, the observatory appeared undamaged. The door swung open. Inside, authorities found James Thompson unconscious but alive, his vital signs stable. Beside him on the floor lay a USB drive that hadn't been there before, labeled in unfamiliar handwriting, for Dr. Reeves and my parents. But the truly extraordinary discovery was found clutched in James's hand. A photograph of Abigail, looking exactly as she had at 12 years old, standing in what appeared to be a laboratory of advanced design. Next to her stood a tall, slender figure in a white garment, its features obscured by light. And on Abigail's desk, clearly visible, was a calendar showing the date, July 8, 2023. The same day, but apparently in a very different place. James Thompson remained unconscious for 72 hours, the same amount of time as the anomaly duration and the period of missing time reported by the hikers years earlier. When he finally awoke, he had no memory of what had transpired inside the observatory after the light appeared. Medical tests showed unusual brain activity, particularly in the hippocampus, the region associated with memory formation. But doctors found no explanation for his extended unconsciousness. Meanwhile, Dr. Reeves accessed the USB drive, taking extraordinary security precautions in case it contained malware. Instead, she found 7 terabytes of data, far exceeding the storage capacity of any commercially available USB drive. The data included a video file featuring Abigail Thompson, appearing exactly as she had at 12 years old, despite the decade that had passed. In the video, Abigail sat in what looked like an advanced laboratory, surrounded by equipment that engineering experts would later describe as theoretical technology, designs that exist on paper but are beyond our current manufacturing capabilities. She spoke clearly, her voice unchanged from home videos the Thompson family had shared with investigators years earlier. "Mom, Dad, Dr. Reeves, I hope this reaches you," she began. "Where I am, it's still July 8, 2013. Time works differently here. What's been years for you has been hours for me. I'm trying to understand it myself." She explained that while using her telescope that night, she had observed an unusual aerial phenomenon and taken readings with her equipment. "Something responded to my instruments," she continued. "There was a flash of light, and then I was elsewhere." Abigail described being transported to what she called a research habitat, where she encountered beings who communicated with her telepathically. They explained they were scientists from what human mathematics would describe as a parallel probability space. Not aliens from another planet, but humans who had evolved along a different technological path in a reality adjacent to our own. "They've been studying the quantum boundaries between our realities for centuries. Their time," Abigail explained. "Sometimes these boundaries thin naturally, creating convergence points. Roswell is one such point. They've been trying to establish communication for decades, but most human technology isn't sensitive enough to detect their presence properly. The most astonishing revelation came next. They didn't intend to take me. My equipment accidentally created a resonance pattern that temporarily merged our spaces. They've been trying to return me exactly when and where they found me, but the physics are incredibly complex. Time flows differently between our spaces. For every minute here, approximately 525,600 minutes pass in our world. A year for you is about 1 minute for me." The mathematical precision was undeniable. The ratio perfectly explained why Abigail hadn't aged. "I've convinced them to try a different approach," she continued. "Instead of returning me to 2013, which might create a dangerous temporal paradox, they're going to attempt to bridge between now, my now, and what should be 2023 in our world." Dad's presence in the observatory created the anchor point they needed. The video showed Abigail writing in her notebook, the same notebook that had mysteriously received new entries years after being placed in evidence. I'm leaving calculations that Dr. Reeves will understand. There's going to be one more chance to establish a stable bridge between our spaces. July 8, 2025. Exactly 12 years after I disappeared. The convergence point will be strongest then. The video concluded with Abigail looking directly into the camera, her expression both earnest and eerily mature despite her unchanged appearance. Mom, Dad, I'm not suffering. I'm learning incredible things. But I want to come home. Help them find me on the other side of the bridge. The final frame showed an equation written in Abigail's handwriting, precise coordinates on the Thompson property, and a time, 9:43 p.m., July 8, 2025. Verification of the video's authenticity proved challenging but compelling. Voice pattern analysis confirmed a 99.7% match with Abigail's recorded voice. The video contained no evidence of digital manipulation, according to the FBI's forensic analysis. Most convincingly, the equations in the video matched those that had appeared in Abigail's notebook, but expanded upon them in ways that leading physicists confirmed represented genuine theoretical breakthroughs. These aren't concepts a 12-year-old girl could have invented, noted Dr. Michio Chen, a quantum physicist consulted by the FBI. These aren't even concepts our most advanced researchers could have developed. We're looking at physics that might be theoretically possible, but is centuries beyond our current understanding. For Margaret and James Thompson, the video brought both vindication and renewed hope. After 10 years of being dismissed as grieving parents clinging to improbable theories, they now had tangible evidence supporting what they had sensed all along. Abigail was alive, somewhere beyond conventional understanding, and there was a chance, however theoretical, of bringing her home. The 2 years following the discovery of Abigail's video were marked by unprecedented scientific and governmental mobilization. Dr. Reeves, now leading a multidisciplinary team backed by private research foundations and discrete government funding, established a permanent research facility on the Thompson property. Using Abigail's equations, they developed instruments specifically designed to detect and potentially stabilize the theoretical probability bridge that might form on July 8, 2025. James and Margaret Thompson, though maintaining residence in their home, had transformed their lives around the mission of retrieving their daughter. Margaret, previously a high school English teacher, had immersed herself in quantum physics literature, becoming an unlikely but respected liaison between grieving parents worldwide and the scientific community. James had channeled his background in physics education into developing curriculum materials, explaining complex interdimensional theories in accessible terms for the public. As July 2025 approached, the scientific community remained divided. Mainstream physicists maintained skepticism, attributing the phenomena to a combination of natural events, psychological factors, and potential hoaxes. However, a growing contingent of respected researchers acknowledged that the Thompson case had produced data that couldn't be explained by current scientific models. Whether or not we accept the interdimensional hypothesis, wrote Dr. Vanessa Kuroda of CERN in a controversial paper, the electromagnetic and gravitational anomalies recorded at the Thompson property represent repeatable phenomena that deserve serious scientific investigation. The Thompson property became something of a scientific pilgrimage site. Researchers from prestigious institutions quietly arranged visits, often later acknowledging that witnessing the annual light phenomenon had challenged their understanding of physical laws. Equipment installed around the property consistently recorded inexplicable data, gravitational measurements that shouldn't be possible outside a black hole, quantum field fluctuations that violated established principles of physics, and most remarkably, occasional bursts of particles that appeared to have impossible properties, behaving as if they existed in two states simultaneously. Government involvement remained officially minimal but practically substantial. Satellite time was allocated for the region during key dates, military radar systems were quietly directed to monitor the airspace, and specialized equipment developed for classified programs was made available to Dr. Reeves's team through unofficial channels. As July 8, 2025 approaches, now just 2 weeks away, preparations have reached their pinnacle. The equipment designed according to Abigail's specifications has been installed and tested repeatedly. The Thompson Observatory, preserved all these years, has been supplemented with a research facility built to exacting specifications. A controlled perimeter has been established to maintain security while allowing necessary scientific access. For Margaret and James Thompson, the approaching date brings emotions too complex for simple description. People ask if we're excited. Margaret recently told a journalist allowed rare access to the site. How do you describe waiting for a miracle that science says is impossible? Our daughter has been 12 years old for 12 years while we've grown older without her. If she comes back, when she comes back, she'll be returning to parents who have lived a lifetime of grief in what has been just hours for her. James, more reticent with the press, offered only, Abigail always loved Einstein's quote that God doesn't play dice with the universe. Maybe not, but it seems the universe might play dice with dimensions. We're just hoping the next roll brings our daughter home. The scientific team has established protocols for every conceivable outcome on July 8th. Medical specialists will be standing by. Psychological experts have prepared for the complex trauma Abigail may have experienced, despite her message suggesting otherwise. Linguists, physicists, and anthropologists have developed frameworks for understanding and documenting any communication that might occur with the entities Abigail described. The world watches and waits. The Thompson case has transcended a missing person investigation to become perhaps the most significant scientific event of the century, potentially rewriting our understanding of reality itself. Whatever occurs on July 8, 2025, will either provide answers to one family's 12-year nightmare or deepen one of the most profound mysteries in human history. If you've made it this far in this extraordinary case, I want to thank you sincerely for joining me on this journey into the unknown. What do you think will happen on July 8, 2025? Do you believe Abigail will return through this theoretical bridge between realities? Could there be other cases like this that we've misinterpreted as conventional disappearances? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our coverage of the upcoming event at the Thompson property. The truth is out there, and together, we might just find it.